Shalom and welcome to the One Pasuk podcast, where the rabbis at Congregation Avas Torah each share an insight on one particular pasuk from the Parsha and reflect on each other's ideas. Rabbinic banter, I like to call it. I am Chaim Pupko, and I am joined by my dear friends and teammates, Rabbi Daniel Goldberg
Shalom.
and Rabbi Morty Kisus.
Shalom.
To sponsor a future episode of the One Pasuk podcast for a happy occasion or a yortzeit, please visit onepasukpodcast.com and click on the sponsorship link. All right, here we go. Our one pasuk for this week, Parshas Behar Bechukosai, comes from Perek Chafei Pasuk Chaf Aleph, chapter 25, verse 21. V'tzivisi es birchasi lachem v'shana hashishis v'asas es hatvo l'shlosh hashanim. I will ordain my blessing for you in the 6th year, so that it shall yield a crop sufficient for 3 years. The Torah articulates a concern that the Jewish farmer may have when it comes to fulfilling the laws of Shemitah, that if they're not allowed to work their land in the 7th year, then what will they have to feed themselves in the 8th year? And so the promise that Hashem makes, and it's debated by the commentaries exactly how it plays out among the years, but the promise is that the yield in the 6th year will be enough to sustain them throughout those years until they're able to plant again in the 8th year. But let's see what the rabbis have to say about this.
I saw something thought-provoking. I'm not sure how to tie it up in a neat bow. Maybe my rabbinic colleagues here can help me. The Sefarno says, regarding this bracha, that it's be'ofen shetizba ayin, that it satisfies the eye, such that the farmer will look and he'll see that usually I fill up 1 silo of grain, and this year I filled up 3. So he's satisfied, meaning he feels, okay, Hashem delivered his promise to me. It's here. I got 3 times 3x my earnings, and that covers me for these 3 years. The Orach Chaim, though, explicitly rejects that. He says, no, Hashem puts a certain amount of koach into nature, and the yield is going to be the same. So you're going to have the same silo filled with your grain, but it's more of a miracle on par with Ishes Ovadia from Sefer Melachim, the woman who approaches the Navi Elisha and says, I know I'm poor, I have debtors, my husband has died. And he says, what do you have in the house? She says, I have oil. And she says, okay, get from all of your neighbors, all of the vessels you have in town. And she starts pouring the oil. And the more she pours, the more it continues to just produce and produce and produce and produce. So a little bit of oil. This is the original Nes Pach Shemen, the original Nes of oil lasting. But it was not 3 silos. It wasn't 1,000 jugs that miraculously appeared. It was a small amount that lasted a very long time. And I was just thinking about the difference between those 2 types of miracles. And on the one hand, if it's all there, it's much less of a challenge for the farmer because he has paspasalo, literally bread in his basket, and he knows, okay, I have enough, provided it actually physically lasts, but I have enough. Versus the other one, which is much more demanding of you, of the farmer, to say okay, it's the same amount as always, but Hashem's going to make this last. And, so it's like a bigger chesed if it's all there initially. At the same time, there's something ultra miraculous about the Nes Pach Shemen, about the, a little bit lasting so long. There's something really incredible about that. And, I was just thinking about the experience of both of them. And so that's my not fully formed thought, but maybe it sparked in you any, further reflections.
Further reflections, I don't necessarily know that we have to tie that in a bow. I think it's very thought-provoking. And I think for all of us, there are times in our lives in which it's evident that something... I remember for Rabbi Yaakov Hillel, when I was studying in his kollel in Israel, he used to teach us Sunday mornings. And he used to say that somebody in kollel shouldn't be overly careful with his accounting. He shouldn't constantly check his bank and balances. He should understand that the dollar goes further than normal, or at the time, the shekel goes further than normal. The beracha that we have in studying in the kollel and promise that God is going to support us is such that naturally it goes further. Now, obviously, there's people that have the tendency to be more scrupulous in their accounting, and they're just highly responsible individuals. And for them, somehow, it was adequate, always. Didn't matter how or what. So I think for each of us, our experiences probably lend to both of these ideas in our day-to-day lives. And it's not just one or the other. I live the Sforno's life, or I live the Orach Chaim's life. There are times where Hashem says, you're clueless, and you would not have made this month if not for me. And there are times where Hashem says, oh, I'm flush with cash. I can make this month easily. And each of those is based on circumstances and events and our interactions and relationship with Hashem and how He decides to sustain us, so to speak. So I don't know that we need to create this perfectly formulated thought in the sense that it's either one of these. How do we flesh it out? But I think that's the idea.
Actually, what you were saying, Rabbi Goldberg, perhaps the lesson in this is that while Hashem provides miracles, there's still a challenge. The miracle doesn't solve all problems. The miracle gives us the means by which to help ourselves sustain ourselves. And so if Hashem gives us everything all at once, so there's a certain challenge in that, in being able to use that gift properly. And if Hashem gives us everything little by little, then the challenge is to have that emunah, have that faith that this miracle is going to last, that we're going to be able to sustain it further. And so, when we say like ein somchin al hanes, we're not supposed to rely on a miracle. So the simple meaning of that is that we're not supposed to expect a miracle. But perhaps there's a homiletical understanding. Ein somchin al hanes means you don't just sit on your nace. You still have to do something with that gift that Hashem gives us.
That's beautiful. You also sparked in me, there's probably interesting psychological studies or analyses on lottery winners. You can either take the lump sum,
right,
or you can be paid out in small amounts, for the rest of your life. And just thinking about that, having it all in the bank, 3 years right away of the produce and feeling large. Or knowing I have to ration this and it will stay, but I have to still be careful and kind of expect those incremental amounts. I don't know. It resonates in that way with me.
Yeah, it reminds me of Bobby Bonilla Day, one of those days in which some people think we shouldn't say Tachanun because Bobby Bonilla, a great baseball player for the Mets, his one of his last contract. Was structured in such a way that he would be paid out for many, many years, $1 million something a year for 30 some odd years or whatever.
There's a classic contradiction that's raised by many of the commentaries, and that is the pasuk immediately prior to the one that we saw suggests that Hashem is going to form this beracha in a fashion in which va'achaltem lasova. As she explains, that whatever we eat is going to be adequate. Doesn't matter how much we eat, but the food in our stomachs are going to fill us and satisfy us. And then the next pasuk says, "V'chi tomru ma nochal." If we're going to ask, what should we eat? Then the pasuk that we're analyzing this morning, "V'tziviti et berchati." God is going to extend His blessing, and it's going to last for 3 years. Now, this seems somewhat confusing, because at first, Hashem says, naturally, the blessing of someone who observes the 7th year of Shemitah is that all his foods are going to satisfy him, and he's not going to require anything else. And then the very next pasuk says, if they're going to ask, what are you going to eat? What do you mean, what are you going to eat? I already just told you that whatever you eat is going to last much longer. So why are you asking now, manochal? That then the pasuk has to say, oh, yeah. No, what's actually going to transpire is there's going to be 3 years of blessing in the food that grows during that 1 year. And then Mefarshim explained that we're discussing 2 separate individuals. One who has an extraordinarily high level of emunah and bitachon. And he's somebody who Hashem says, the 7th year, if you observe the 7th year, I will take care of you. Such a person sits back and says, Hashem, I don't care that my cupboards are empty. I don't care that the silos half full. I am certain that I can survive this way. Such a person will, in fact, survive and lack nothing. However, naturally, amongst us are people who don't have that extraordinarily high level of emunah and bitachon. And that person is going to say, my cupboards are empty, my silos half full. What are we going to eat in the 7th year? To that, Hashem says, no, even for you, I can accommodate. And He says that there's going to be 1 year of blessing that's going to last for 3. So the Mefarshim explain that we're really talking to 2 entirely different people. One with a very high level of emunah bitachon, doesn't question anything, has absolute faith in Hashem that it's going to work out. And then one that, for many of us, we go through our lives asking, manochal, how's this going to work? How's this going to make sense? I don't really see the plan for the next few months. Hashem says, don't worry about it. For us, v'tzibiti et berchati lachem b'shana hashishit. So we're talking to 2 entirely different individuals.
So you think most of us are the second person?
I would say it's more common for us to even internally ask ourselves this question quite often. Manocha, like, how's this going to work? Like, what's the plan? But I wouldn't. I would say probably the most of the people in Englewood are the first part. We're such unbelievable community, and we're so advanced in our Emunah and Bitachon. I'd venture to say they don't question anything. But
maybe both are in all of us, meaning there's always that natural, instinctive fear. But then when you think about it and you draw on your faith, you're able to summon emunah.
I think this is my children's favorite pasuk, actually. Chaf, not Chaf Aleph. Because they quote it every day in carpool on the way home. Manochal, what are we going to eat? And I say, have emunah. Ima has prepared something good for us. Don't worry. There's something to eat.
So we find in this pasuk that Hashem is guaranteeing that He'll provide enough produce in the yield of the 6th year to cover 3 years. But that's not the language that the pasuk uses, the language of promise or guarantee. Instead, it says that Hashem will command His blessing. Vitzivisi es birchasi. What exactly does it mean to command His blessing? The Sfas Emes offers a novel and fascinating understanding of the concept of bracha and what it means here in this context. He explains that at first glance, it seems like there are 2 ways in which Hashem provides for us. Either the supernatural way or in a natural way. When Hashem provided for Bnei Israel in the desert, man, right, bread that fell from heaven, that was a supernatural means of sustaining us. But when they would arrive in the land of Israel, and the way the world works now, Hashem provides for us through natural means, through the natural order, that we work the land and we reap its produce, but, it's ultimately from Hashem. In addition, though, to the supernatural way of providing for us, or the natural way, the Sfas Emes suggests that there is a middle ground between these 2 ways. And that middle ground is bracha, is blessing. According to this approach, bracha means to pull or extend. That when Hashem says He's going to command His blessing, what it means is that Hashem will enable the natural order to be pulled or extended beyond what it normally produces. And so Vitzivisi birchasi means that Hashem will sustain the Jewish people during this sabbatical year by stretching or expanding what they naturally harvest in the 6th year. There is no overt miracle in this. Rather, Hashem will bless us. He'll bless us by enabling us to harvest more than we thought we could accomplish, more than we expected. And that's Hashem's promise at the dawn of the Shemitah year. And it's a lesson that I often share with bar and bat mitzvah kids as they're entering Jewish adulthood. I try to encourage them that as they face what seems to be a daunting number of mitzvos that they're now obligated in, that they should recognize that they're capable of more than they may realize, that they have so much potential. And in fact, it's an idea that I learned from Rabbi Yossi Adler at TABC. I was teaching a class and I was telling him how I was struggling at first to kind of calibrate the material towards the level of the kids. And I remember what he said to me vividly. He said, just remember, kids are capable of more than they realize. Don't just teach at their level. Teach also just above their level. Help them to appreciate that they can go beyond and achieve more than they could before. And in fact, I happen to see that the comic book character, the Incredible Hulk, was based on this idea. That the creator of the Incredible Hulk, he witnessed something it's kind of like an urban legend or a metaphor. He witnessed a mother lifting a car off her child. This idea that in moments of crisis, people are able to summon strength that they didn't know they had within them. And that gave him the inspiration for the character of the Incredible Hulk. And so the idea here is that in the 6th year, as we prepare ourselves for the Shemitah year, that every Jewish farmer becomes an Incredible Hulk of farming.
So bracha, if I'm understanding, is not just what we receive from Hashem, but it's enabling us to be more than we are.
Yeah.
That's very, very beautiful.
Yeah. It's
I like that.
giving us the means to do more than we thought we could.
V'heyeh bracha, you shall be a blessing. It gives another dimension to that.
Yeah.
I like that you, Rabbi, expanded this way beyond the mitzvah of Shemitah, which obviously for us in the diaspora is far less relevant. But to understand that within each of us is this unbelievable potential.
Yeah.
And a neshama on its own has extraordinary, boundless capability, but it's about tapping into it. And certain situations require that we do. And so it happens, in the example that you gave with the mother picking up the card. But I think if we all just tapped into it a little bit more, we'll surprise ourselves as to what we're capable of.
Beautiful.
Yeah.